And hello, everybody, and welcome to Weekday Warriors of Wrestling for Thursday, May 12th, 2022. I'm Erik, Clancy, joined by Patrick Kelley. You'll probably hear this on Friday, May 13th. But yeah, we got two big stories, mostly around contracts. One focused on an AEW star and one focused on a WWE star. We're also going to talk a little bit about Dynamite. We'll chat a little bit about Double or Nothing and where things are headed there. So yeah, that should take us through about 45 minutes or so. So I guess we'll start with this because it's the most fresh, but there was a story reported today by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful that MJF is leaning towards leaving AEW when his contract is up, and apparently he is that argument rather that he had with Tony Khan over the Ariel Helwani interview and not having permission to do it, kind of like put them not as on the greatest terms as they previously were, and he is leaning towards going to WWE. So that's interesting. I mean, it could all be a work, but I feel like my credibility is shot after my Cody prediction. So who knows? I mean, I always think of I feel like this audience and like the AEW audience and MJF, it's like, well, they'll eat this up. So why don't I just put some pressure on them? But I guess the big thing to me, Patrick, is it's 2 years. He's signed until I think July or August, I think July of 2024, because he signed an extension in the summer of 2019. So,
and he referenced 2024 in the promo on Dynamite last night. So
yeah, he always talks about he always talks about 2024. I was just wondering if it was January or the summer, but I think it's the summer. So yeah, I mean that's the big thing. It's 2 years. So even if he doesn't get what he wants, he's not going anywhere until 2024.
Yeah, unless he becomes such a pain to deal with, Tony Khan just lets him out of his contract. But again, we don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, and there's a little bit of blurring reality and possible working on MJF's part to kind of make himself seem more interesting and exciting. And MJF, we've said it before, he's a hell of a talent, one of the top guys in AEW, and it would be a huge loss to let him go. But in his mind, he's a hot commodity. So it serves him to make himself as interesting as possible when it comes time to negotiate.
Yeah. And, so, I mean, I don't know how true a lot of this stuff is, but I've heard there is on AEW side, there is the willingness to come to the table and to negotiate an extension, but MJF is not interested in extending the contract. He just wants more money, which is not how contract extensions work. I mean, the Mets did it with Jacob deGrom a few years ago. They re-signed him, I think 2 years or a year and a half, somewhere around there, before he was due to hit free agency. And they gave him $100 million, but on the open market, he would have hit 200. So the idea is, you save, 100% or not 100%, but you say 50% of the cost. But you sign them now. So, that would be the thing. I think if MJF wanted an extension, he would get one, but otherwise he's locked up till 2024. So, I mean, I don't know. It just, to me, it seems like a ton of posturing, but I also think it's poorly timed because you want to be doing this stuff in the 6 to 7 months coming up in your contract, not in the 2 years, in the over 2 years. That your contract's going to be up, it's just you got to pace this shit out. So I don't know if I agree with this strategy as far as trying to grab a bigger deal.
Yeah, and again, we don't know how much of this is real and how much of this is just them working us. But and MJF is one of those guys. He's a master at keeping the act up when the cameras are off. So again, you don't know how much of it is real and how much of it isn't. And you've ever seen him on social media, it's like there's no way there's no way that this is a shoot because he's just always in character. So once again, who knows? So that's something I guess we won't figure out for another 2 years, or depending on how negotiations go and how his standing with AEW holds up, how he's treated on the program for the next 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact is this, and I've been surprised with how well WWE has presented Cody since he's gotten there. I think they've made him.
Oh, he's the best guy in the company right now.
Yeah, and he's being pushed as hard as anyone not named Roman Reigns. So, I mean, there's that. But that said, Cody's 6'3", 6'2", pretty big guy, has a pedigree in the business. Vince worked with him before. I don't know if MJF would get the kind of treatment Cody is getting if he went there.
But if Cody is in Vince's good graces, would Cody vouch for MJF in a sense? Because Cody's worked with him. Cody brought him on board to AEW. So, he's got somebody within the WWE that can speak up for him too.
I mean, Adam Cole was Triple H and Shawn Michaels' boy, and Vince was going to bring him up to be Keith Lee's manager. So if Triple H and Shawn Michaels can't, the fact is Adam Cole's still a skinny 5'6" or 5'7", 5'8", whatever he is. You can say whatever you want, but if Vince doesn't see money in you, he doesn't see money in you. And I would imagine that, MJF's in good shape, but he is shorter than Vince likes his stars. He does have a receding hairline at 25, which isn't the greatest thing for marketability. So yeah, I mean, if I'm MJF, and I've heard the rumors that, he would prefer WWE because he could use that to get into acting, and he's always been interested in that. Although, I mean, who succeeds in WWE while they're in WWE in acting? I feel like he could pursue those things in AEW, but I mean, I don't think that's the right move for him. And like Cody, I think it's a different story because they really gave Cody everything they want, but I think they're getting something out of Cody that they want, which is a guy who comes off like a big deal. And I don't know if, I agree that I think MJF's a big deal, but I don't think Vince would think that.
Yeah, and actually, now that you mentioned the Adam Cole thing, that got me thinking, the fact that MJF is one of the best talkers, maybe the best talker in the business today, would probably hurt him because Vince will take one look at him, listen to him talk, he's like, oh my God, that's great. He can be a manager.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean,
it's good shit.
Yeah. And I mean, and MJF has allies there. I mean, Bruce Pritchard's there. Bruce Pritchard likes him a lot. But at the end of the day, Bruce Pritchard pushed for RVD to be like a top guy. It didn't work. Bruce pushed for CM Punk. CM Punk was not a top guy because of Bruce Pritchard. It was a top guy because all these other things happened. So, there's only so much you can really do. Vince has to make that decision. I mean, you remember how Goldberg was presented in 2003 compared to how Goldberg is presented from 2016 onward? That's because Vince made a switch in his mind of how he perceived him. So it all comes down to Vince, and I don't know. I don't think he's I don't know. I think AEW is the best move. If I'm MJF, I'm just like whatever, take my stuff. Hopefully my segments are getting big ratings and I can point to that. And if AEW gets a big new rights fee and they get a ton of money, then start negotiating, because I guarantee you they'll be more free with the money if they get a 3-time multiplier per year.
And the other thing about AEW in comparison to WWE, a guy like MJF needs creative freedom to be able to present himself in the best light possible. And in WWE, unless you're one of Vince's favorite sons, like a Brock Lesnar or something like that, you're not going to have that. You're going to be exactly what Vince wants you to be, whether you like it or not. And MJF is a guy that flourishes when you give him the mic and just let him do what he wants, and he'll make magic out of it.
Yeah.
So again, that's another indicator. Is would WWE be a good fit for him? And also, people make the comparison to Miz a lot. It's like, because some detractors of MJF say it's like, oh, he's just dollar store Miz. I would argue that at least on the mic, he's better than Miz, but in other areas, we can have a different discussion. But on the mic, I think he is better than Miz. But is that, again, it comes back to Vince. Is that a perception that Vince would have?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I mean, Miz is in a great spot in WWE. He's a guy who's always featured on big shows. He'll get spots with celebrities. His job is secure. He works with everyone. It's a great spot. Is that the spot MJF sees himself in? I mean, MJF's like, I want to be Roddy Piper. I want to be like the top heel. And that's not the Miz spot. That's a different spot. So it's really a question if you went there, you could possibly, I think, have that spot. But is that where he sees himself? And I don't think that's the question. And sometimes you think guys come in and they'll have a role, and they in that company especially, and they don't. Look at Tyler Breeze when he was going up from NXT to main roster in I think 2015 or so, or 2016. I can't remember when it was, but you're like, oh, maybe they'll use Tyler Breeze as kind of a Dolph Ziggler type guy. And they feuded them together, but then he was instantly low card at best. And say what you want about Dolph Ziggler. And, I mean, Dolph Ziggler has world title matches on pay-per-views occasionally. He'll have, featured matches with guys. They did not give that to Tyler Breeze. So you never know where they're going to slot you. Cody played it better than anyone, and they've really been I think Meltzer said this, trying to make a positive example of him, where it's hey, come on over. But I mean, I just don't know if MJF is going to get the treatment there he thinks he's going to get.
Yeah, and that's and I'm sure MJF, he's got friends on both sides giving him the lowdown. I mean, there's plenty of people in AEW that used to work there. And, Cody, like I said, I'm sure he's in contact with Cody, filling him in and things like that. So it's just a lot of things up in the air right now. And again, it's to your point, it's kind of crazy that we're having this discussion 2 years before the contract's even up. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So moving on to other contracts, we've got some news on Roman Reigns. Apparently he signed an extension recently, which good on WWE for letting their top guy not sign elsewhere, especially when he's been put over every single other person. That would probably be stupid. And according to Dave Meltzer, it's a limited part-time schedule, which is kind of like Brock Lesnar's, whereas he'll be doing far fewer house shows. He'll be doing some television dates in the summer, and he'll be doing matches at Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. He's not going to be on Hell in a Cell. I imagine he's going to be on the Cardiff pay-per-view, probably with Drew McIntyre or something. But yeah, so Roman will be on less shows. And I think that's and Patrick, this is not going to surprise you when I say this, but I think that this is probably a good move for Roman Reigns and WWE, because if there's one thing the Brock Lesnar presentation showed us, it's what you and I always say, it's overexposure is the enemy. And, you look at, God, I feel like a fucking broken record, but, you look at in the way Raw filmed in the mid 90s, and you look at the way Nitro filmed in the late 90s, and, you would not have on Raw, you wouldn't have The Undertaker, Bret Hart, or Shawn Michaels on every week. And a Nitro, Hogan would not be on every show. Piper most certainly would not be on every show. You would space these guys out, and it kept them from getting overexposed, and it made them feel like they were a bigger deal. And there is something to be said in this era of entertainment on demand, and you can go on YouTube or you can go on a streaming service. You can see whatever the fuck you want whenever you want. So there's a inclination to put as much fucking content out there as you possibly can, but that also risks the factor of cheapening it and cheapening the people involved in it. So when you restrict that content and you make it mean more, then it becomes a big deal. And I think like Brock Lesnar has shown that, and I think they can do that with Roman Reigns. I mean, let's let's look at the big thing that happened recently, the Will Smith Chris Rock slap. I mean, that's like 2 minutes of action. It's like, but it's a big deal because that never happens. And like, I'm not saying it was faked. It was a real thing. But what I'm saying is like you can't do everything. So space out what you can do. At this point, Roman's schedule is coming out saying, acknowledge me and feuding with a new person. So I think the less there's only so much you can do with that. And to be fair to Roman, only nobody can succeed in that role. Like when you have guys out there, when Seth Rollins was the champion in 2015, and he would come out and just whine at the beginning of every show, it was terrible. When when anybody comes out with the title endlessly and you see them constantly, you're just like, okay, cool. What else is on? And so I think this just elevates Roman even further above everyone else and makes him an even bigger deal than he already was.
Absolutely. You and I have both always subscribed to the mindset of less is more. And now more than ever in this current environment, like you said, of entertainment with streaming, like I can speak for myself. When it comes to things like Star Wars and even Marvel now, like there's so much content and so many movies and so many shows to keep up with that it becomes so difficult to keep up with it all that I've just kind of thrown my hands up and said, well, fuck it. I ain't going to do it. I don't have enough time in the day to keep up with all of that and keep up to date on everything that's going on. And that's a problem that's been choking WWE for years now, even before streaming, where it's like everybody has to be on every single show. And that's really more of a modern mindset, where this expectation that the champion has to be on the show every week. And you mentioned the examples, like Brock Lesnar showed that can work. Undertaker, even though he wasn't the champion, he was a sporadic appearance and was special whenever he did show up. I think back to Hollywood Hogan's reign in '97 on Nitro, and he was felt a lot more special when he wasn't defending the title all the time, and they would let Savage and DDP main event a pay-per-view.
Steve Austin got more over by wrestling less in '97 and '98.
Oh yeah, and people forget he took sporadic breaks from time to time. Like I think it was what was that pay-per-view? Rock Bottom, where he faced Undertaker in the Buried Alive match, and then he was gone for like 4 weeks, and then he came back for the Rock Mick Foley title match.
Yeah, and he wasn't really on TV that much to lead up to it. He had the night after Survivor Series with The Rock, and they did a few like embalming stuff, but like they focused a lot of those shows around Rock and Mankind and DX Incorporation.
And if you can create a situation where other guys can kind of close out, I've been watching a lot of old 80s stuff, and there were shows where Tito Santana and Greg Valentine over the IC title, they had a couple of steel cage matches, and they would get to close out a show just because, it was a hot feud. Back then the IC title was considered important. People were enjoying the matches. So let them close out a show. You have a big attraction while at the same time, you're not overexposing Hogan. So who's the top draw, but it's, if you can have people underneath who can deliver and expand their own horizons in the absence of the champion, I think it's beneficial for everybody involved, because you don't have one guy hogging up the massive amount of screen time that WWE has to fill every week.
And I mean, look at UFC and look at how UFC does it. Like you don't have the same guys week in and week or month in and month out. You have like,
they physically can't do that.
Yeah, they can. So you have the heavyweight title, you have like Ngannou like headline one pay-per-view, and then you have like the light heavyweight the next, and you space it out. And what you do with that is, number one, you're not reliant on one person, which like WWE should love, because they hate that, although they love to like book themselves into that place, but it allows you to create more stars, in like, oh, okay, so we have like, here's our light heavyweight champion, here's our bantamweight champion, here's our heavyweight champion, et cetera, and you're getting each of these guys over, and you're like, it's like building a pitcher's rotation, right? Like okay, like I could put Jacob deGrom out there on the mound for the Mets, but like fuck, his arm's going to get worn out pretty quickly. People are going to figure him out pretty quickly. I need other starters. I need Max Scherzer. I need like these other guys that are going to carry the load. And that's like, I don't know, this idea of one guy, and Vince has seemingly always been of this mindset, like from Hogan to Austin to Cena to Reigns. He like loves this idea of this one guy. I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure. You can say we've got Roman and Brock right now, and maybe Cody's coming up. But like really, he just does not disperse it as well as he should. Now, I'm not saying he should have like 17 of these guys, because then you're at the opposite end. Then you're at the end 50-50 booking where nobody's over, and you don't want that. But you do, I think, want a core group of like 5 or 6 guys that look like stars. And AEW does that really, really well. I mean, if you look at the guys they protect Hangman, they protect Punk, they protect MJF, they protect the Bucks, they protect Omega when he's there, they protect Moxley, Danielson, they protect Cole. They protect a certain amount of guys, and then there are guys that are like, you're here and you're going to have good matches and stuff, but you're not going to be like in cellophane. So like, guys like Lance Archer, guys like Wheeler Yuta, guys like Trent or Chuck Taylor. They're guys that they're not as interested in protecting, and I think that's fine, because you need somebody to beat. It's just like, I mean, it's funny because I'm going back what I said 4 seconds ago, where like Vince has always had this mindset. But if you look at like the mid 90s, where I know everybody will say that time sucked, but I think they had a lot of viable stars in that time, and using those stars correctly actually did lead to the Attitude Era. So there's that. But Brett, Undertaker, Razor, Diesel, Shawn, Yokozuna, like Sid, like
Vader for a bit.
Yeah, Vader. He had like 7 guys, and he'd be like, okay, you're not going to protect like Tracy Smothers, or you're not going to protect like Savio Vega or whatnot, but you'll protect these guys. And like, for the most part, these guys aren't going to lose. And when they do, it's a big deal. And that's that. And it's just AEW has that mindset, and Vince doesn't. They take it seriously with Roman and Brock, and with how over and important Roman and Brock seem, you figured you want to do it with a few other people.
Yeah, but it's funny you mentioned the mid 90s, because I think we've talked about it before, but for all the shit that like kind of new generation era gets for a lot of its goofy gimmicks and goofy characters and everything, structurally there's like solid booking during that era that I wish we could go back to. Just drop the stupid characters and turn up like the attitude that you would see later in the decade. But structurally speaking, there's some really good shows in there, and like things that wrestling shows should strive to be. But going back to Roman, I think him being a part-timer, I think is great. And I'll tell you this instantly, he's the unified champion. So he's got both world titles. The whole problem of WWE having too many world title matches at every single pay-per-view, and being world champion doesn't mean as much. That's been fixed now, because now Roman's going to be more of a special attraction, and the world title is going to feel a lot more important. Yeah.
Agreed. All right, so let's talk about Dynamite last night. I thought, I don't know how you felt, I thought this was like one of the best shows they put on in quite some time.
Top to bottom, yeah, it was very exciting. I have a couple notes, but we'll go through it as we talk about the show. But overall, I thought it was very exciting.
Yeah, let's go through it. So we had this match that opened the show, and it was for the Owen Hart's men's tournament quarterfinals between Adam Cole and Dax Harwood. And this match, Patrick, asked the question: what if Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were in really terrible shape and they had a match?
It's funny. And I'm not trying to pick on him too much, but FTR lately, they've been having a lot of Bret Hart quote unquote tribute, and CM Punk has been doing it too. And whenever you see the side-by-side comparison, you really do realize how good of a worker Bret really was. It's like, man, his stuff looks so much better. And the same thing when you compare Adam Cole to Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, I mean, and this match was really good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great opener, and it was good. And I would have had Adam Cole go over too. Like, all I'm saying is they're not in great shape. That's all I'm saying.
Bulk up a little bit, hit the gym, do some weightlifting.
Yeah. Then we had CM Punk continuing to play his heel character in Long Island, which he did last time when he went against MJF. So I appreciate the continuity there. And he went up against John Silver, who's a member of the Hangman affiliated Dark Order from Long Island. I loved Punk playing. I always loved Punk playing a heel. So I enjoyed this. I love the Punk Hangman feud. I think since that Eddie Kingston match, I think Punk has been a lot better, because even though he has been a face, there's been a lot more grit and edge to what he's doing. And the MJF feud tapped into that. And this is a babyface feud where they're not being like, "Oh, respect you." They're like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And it's great. I think it's really good. And
nobody wants to see a fight between people that respect each other. You want to see, you want a little fire thrown into the situation.
Yeah. You want Brady and Manning. You want Magic and Bird. You want, you want that animosity. That's why we're there. We're there for the fight. So if the fight's going to be not a fight, who cares?
Yeah. So, they took a situation where initially it was like, who's Hangman going to face? Who's Hangman going to face? And Punk felt like he got kind of out of obligation, because who else were you going to give it to? But they've turned it into something a little bit more interesting as the weeks have gone on.
Yeah. Then we had Danhausen versus Tony Nese. And I thought this was great because Danhausen lost in like 2 seconds. So that was funny. I also thought that the idea that Tony Nese is like, you didn't even get an intro, so you should make him pay. Hook coming out was awesome. I think Hook is great. And he got a huge fucking pop. So
he's like a cruiserweight Goldberg.
He really is. He looks like Lil Mac from Punch Out.
Yep.
So yeah, and that'll be a nice buy-in match, Nese and Hook. So you built a little heat. You didn't have Danhausen go over anyone important, and Hook gets to make the save and be awesome.
Works out for everybody involved. And for whatever reason, the Hook and Danhausen partnership or pairing is really connected with people, and it's always good to see that.
Yeah. Then we had speaking of a gentleman we've spoken about today, we had MJF and Wardlow in their contract signing. And I thought this was a great segment. I thought this was a ballsy segment to do. And I thought it was a lot of fun.
The Dark Side of the Ring promo was genius.
That was great, especially how much am I getting paid? That was funny. So Wardlow, so if this was WWE, they would have tried to turn MJF heel, or they would have just not had the segment. So the fact that they played into it with MJF being beloved in Long Island, and Wardlow still kicking people's ass and them getting them over that way, because people were cheering Wardlow because it was awesome at the end. And it's like, that's how you get somebody over. You can't shield somebody from everything. So the best thing to do is just like go out there, embrace it as much as you can, and like do things as smart as possible, which is what they did. Like everybody came out of this looking good. MJF came out looking like this cowardly shit. That's like, like he maybe has bitten off a little more than he can chew, which is how you want to present him. And Wardlow just comes off looking like a killer.
Yeah. And Wardlow, we talk about Hook as kind of this project that's gotten over huge. Wardlow's become probably my favorite guy to watch in AEW. They've just done such a brilliant job with this guy. It's really unbelievable to see where he started and where he is now.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to say, I mean, the obvious comparisons are always Goldberg and stuff. And I don't want to say that because it's different. Because he's Wardlow, so there are aspects to like Roman Reigns to him. There are aspects to Goldberg to him. There are aspects of like, different
aspects of Virgil to him, given the storyline.
Yeah. So it's like it's its own thing, but like, holy shit, they're getting this guy over. They're making a huge like Batista, like babyface. Batista's another guy that's like, so, but this is like, I mean, talk about a guy who in 2 years they've turned from who is this to like people are going to pay to see this match at Double or Nothing.
It's for me personally, it's the top attraction on the card.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you could say Punk and Page, but I'm fine with this too. We had Jungle Boy, who needs to be renamed ASAP to Jungle Jack Perry, and Absolute Ricky Starks in a fine match, but this seemed to really lead us to a three-way between Jurassic Express, Team Taz, and Keith Lee. And I am happy that we will have a triple threat match in which both team has a flippy man and all teams have a hoss.
That's always cool. I love tag teams with where both partners are opposite of each other, kind of like the Hart Foundation. And that's kind of what we have here with all these teams, and it's pretty cool.
And next, Patrick, we had for over 9 weeks the most dominant force in sports entertainment, the Jericho Appreciation Society. I cracked up when Excalibur was like, and the Jericho Appreciation Society is going to have a victory speech for some reason. I thought this, like most things the Jericho Appreciation Society does, I think this was great. And I thought the setup was fantastic when they said, remember, a sports entertainer always beats a wrestler. And then Moxley came out and I'm like, holy shit, how did I not see that the Blackpool Combat Club were going to be natural enemies with the Jericho Appreciation Society? It fits so perfectly and I didn't see it. And I'm not mad about that. I just think it's going to be an awesome feud with them teaming up with Kingston and Santana and Ortiz to take on Jericho's group.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. And now I'm wondering, it's like, all right, it's 6-on-5 right now. Is the Jericho Appreciation Society going to go ahead and get a sixth?
So maybe. I don't know if Wheeler will be in it. I think you're looking at Kingston, Santana, Ortiz, and Moxley and Danielson. And I think because it's 5-on-5 and William Regal can't announce War Games, he's going to announce Blood and Guts.
Sounds good to me. I'm all for it.
No, I think that'll be good, especially since, oh no, there's only been one Blood and Guts match. I was like, oh, wasn't there like the Elite against the Inner Circle? But then I realized that match never happened. I was supposed to go to that show that was happening, but
damn COVID.
Yeah, damn COVID. But yeah, so I think that'll be great. I think Jericho and Regal as a segment could be money. So yeah, I'm all in on that.
I mean, Regal has to get his revenge for Jericho peeing in his tea. I mean, that's I would hold a grudge forever if somebody did that to me.
Yeah, I would. Next, we had the quarterfinal in the women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament. It was Jamie Hayter and Toni Storm. This was a really good match. Hey, Patrick, do you remember like 2 years ago when AEW had like 2 good women's wrestlers and WWE had like 1,000, and then WWE pissed off all their wrestlers and like they left or got fired or whatever. And now AEW has this like competitive division of like 7 or 8 really good wrestlers in it.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. I would still say overall WWE is a better division, but
totally.
But we mentioned this during the Royal Rumble. I mean, you look at that Rumble match, it's like, man, they really relied on the part-timers and people coming out of retirement to be in this thing. When before they didn't have to rely as heavily on that. And, they still have a really solid core of top-tier talent, but AEW's closed that gap considerably. And Britt Baker was the one who kind of led the charge on that. She's still the top talent that they have, but the women's division in AEW looks a lot better now than it did when the show first started.
Well, how do you like piss off Toni Storm and let her go? She's like 26 years old. Got a great look. Yeah, just
fans love her, you know.
Yeah, just bad. All right, so then we had our main event. It was a match, I think, regardless of how you feel about Jeff Hardy's return, which I know people think hasn't been good, and from an in-ring perspective, Jeff Hardy and Darby Allin is like, generation versus generation. So I think it was smart to do that. I think I think Jeff should have won this because there's less time on his clock than Darby, and Darby can afford that loss. Now you can have your Jeff Hardy, Adam Cole match, which is, I think it's how it's going to go. So yeah, no, and this was like, they're both insane.
Yeah, the match itself was wild and crazy, and the spots they did were just absolutely out of this world. My only real criticism, I guess, is that I always like to think like building upon itself and, thinking towards the future. What I probably would have done is have them have a regular match where they tease some of the Daredevil stuff and they get themselves either counted out or time limit draw or, something, whatever, double DQ, whatever. So they both get eliminated from the tournament, giving Adam Cole a bye, which is a classic heel thing. And that would necessitate a rematch of some kind where then they can do the no holds barred match at either the pay-per-view or another big Dynamite down the road, kind of whet our appetite for a rematch down the road, which they didn't really do here. They just said, hey, we're going to be crazy. Here you go. Watch them try to kill each other in this match.
Yeah. No, I think you make a great point, and that sounds like really smart booking. So I can't disagree with it. So that was a show. I thought it was a pretty good show. One of the better Dynamites they've had in recent memory. It was a better main event than last week's, which was that ROH women's title match, which goddamn, they really need to do something with ROH and kind of like they need
either
to
split it
figure
off.
that shit out. Yeah.
Yeah, because right now it's just kind of eating up time on the show and it's more annoying than anything else.
Yeah. All right. So I think that is probably time for today. So I think we're good, but thanks everybody for joining us. We didn't do questions. I swear to God, we're gonna do it next time. We're gonna do the questions next time.
Yeah, I actually, thanks for reminding me. I actually have them lined up right here.
We're how many are there?
Let's see. Why is it not loading? Here we go. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, let's do 3 this week, and we'll do the rest of them plus anything anyone else sends next week for next week.
All right, Gabe Johnson wants to know, what's your favorite comic book superhero?
Spider-Man, no question.
Mine is Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
Sasha. To elaborate, because I don't want to just say Spider-Man like an asshole, but like, I always liked that he was kind of the outcast, and I think that's why most people connected with him. Also, by the way, Patrick, it says we had less than a minute on our Zoom meeting.
Oh shit!
Is that gonna kick us out? Should we do the rest of these next week?
Yeah, let's do the rest of these next week.
Right,
I can elaborate on my Snake Eyes answer. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, next week, guys, you get Snake Eyes. All right, thanks for joining us. I'm Erik Clancy alongside Patrick Kelley, and we are
signing off.